Commander Thraylock gazed out through the enormous observation dome of the inevitable conquest, the flagship of the Zephyri Imperial fleet. His four eyes blinked in succession, a habit he'd developed after serving for 3 centuries in the military. Before him, the binary stars of the Voran system glimmered, casting twin shadows over the bridge. "Another system falls under the Sci-Fi Dominion's glory," he remarked to no one in particular, his secondary voice box rumbling with a chuckle that reverberated through his exoskeleton. "So predictable, so dull." From behind him, First Officer Riltar approached, her metallic boots clicking sharply against the polished obsidian floor. Unlike the commander, Riltar was of the Xerax species, one of the first to be conquered by the Zephyri. Now, after 7 generations of genetic enhancements, they served as loyal lieutenants. "Commander, the Voran have surrendered. Their orbital defenses are activated, and their governing council awaits your orders," she announced crisply and formally. "That makes 47 civilizations this cycle alone." Nyler waved one of his upper limbs dismissively, unconcerned. "Standard integration protocol, Rilter. Resource extraction rights for 20 cycles, conscription of their warriors, and of course, cultural re-education." He turned to her with a flicker of amusement. "Did they at least put up a decent fight this time?" "Hardly, Commander," Rilter replied, her voice betraying her disappointment. "Their most advanced weapons couldn't even breach our tertiary shields. The battle lasted about 14 minutes before they requested peace." 14 minutes! Thraylock's exoskeletal plates shifted, showing amusement patterns. "That's almost a record for brevity," he exclaimed. "I remember when the Nylor resistance lasted 3 full rotations. Now that was a battle worth recording in the archives." The vast bridge buzzed with activity as hundreds of crew members from dozens of subjugated species, now loyal to the Zephyri, monitored their stations. The Zephyri Dominion had expanded across 14 galactic sectors over the past millennium, encountering no real resistance for centuries. Science Officer Xerax, a 6-limbed Calixian with shimmering blue scales, approached carrying a data crystal. "Commander, preliminary scans of the next sector are complete. We've detected 17 inhabited systems, 12 of which have spacefaring capabilities, but none surpass Zephyri Classification Level 3. "Level 3? Thraylock hissed, his secondary voice box producing a sound that was somewhere between a laugh and a groan. "Barely out of their gravity wells. Are there any adversaries left in this galaxy worth even considering?" Strategic Advisor Drukanth, one of the few purebred Zephyri besides Thraylock on the bridge, stepped forward. His battle-scarred carapace glinted under the bridge lights. "Perhaps this is the true victory of the Dominion, Commander," he said in a deep, resonant voice. "Not just conquest, but such complete domination that no species dares even think about resistance." Thraylock thought about this, his antenna twitching thoughtfully. "Cold comfort, Drukanth. What glory is there in crushing insects? Where's the honor in a victory so assured? It's all just administrative work." The massive view screen at the center of the bridge flickered, showing a 3D map of their next target, a spiral galaxy at the edge of charted space. It seemed unremarkable, except for its isolation. "What about this one?" Thraylock jabbed a claw at the display. "Any interesting prospects there?" Officer Xerax consulted the data crystal. "Minimal information available, Commander. It's designated as Frontier Galaxy XJ-271. Preliminary long-range scans indicate moderate technological activity, mostly concentrated in one spiral arm." Thraylock's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Zephyri equivalent of a grin. "Well then, maybe we'll find something worthy of our attention there. Plot a course, maximum propulsion. Let's see if anyone in XJ-271 knows how to put up a proper fight." Little did Commander Thraylock know, on that unremarkable blue planet within that unremarkable galaxy, a species called humans were about to offer the Zephyri Dominion exactly what they'd been searching for, and far more than they'd bargained for. The Zephyri Dominion hadn't always been the unstoppable force it was today. 8,000 cycles ago, they were merely one aggressive species among many, struggling for resources on their harsh home world, Xenos Prime. What set them apart was their evolutionary advantage: adaptive exoskeletons that could absorb and integrate beneficial traits from their environment. "Begin the historical presentation," Thraylock commanded as he settled into his ceremonial throne on the command deck. Every new conquest required this ritual, an exhibition of Zephyri power designed to break the spirit of any resistance. The holographic display activated, showing the Zephyri rise to power in vivid, intimidating detail for the captured Voran leaders. "Behold the ascension of the inevitable," narrated the ship's AI and Voron, as the images displayed the Zephyri's first major encounter after achieving spaceflight. 14 generations after the discovery of space travel, the Zephyri encountered the militaristic Nylor Empire. The war lasted 3 years. The Nylor lost. The display showed Zephyri warships, primitive by current standards, surrounding a burning planet. The Zephyri absorbed Nylor metallurgical technology, incorporating it into their exoskeletons. The AI continued as the image shifted to show earlier versions of Thralok's species, their carapaces now gleaming with metallic elements. Next came the Zephyri conquest of the Zephyri Tsian. Nylor watched with practiced indifference as the familiar history unfolded. The Tsian fell, and the Zephyri incorporated limited telepathic abilities. The quantum collective of the Void Dwellers fell, granting the Zephyri mastery of slipstream technology. The chromatic hive mind fell, granting them photosynthetic energy production. With each conquest, the Zephyri grew stronger, absorbing the best traits and technologies from their victims into their biology and warships. The Zephyri Dominion currently spans 14 galactic sectors, encompassing over 12,000 star systems and 47 subjugated civilizations. The AI continued proudly. No military force has successfully resisted Zephyri expansion in over 300 cycles. One of the Voron leaders, braver than the rest, spoke up. "And what happens to those who resist? Who are the conquered?" Nylor leaned forward, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile in his species. "It all depends on how valuable you prove to be," he said casually. "The Fernok are our administrators, the Jerris excel in scientific research, and the Drukanth build our war engines." He gestured towards the officer Riltar and the others standing at attention on the bridge. "Your species will find its place in our grand scheme. Resist us, and you become examples of caution. Serve us well, and you thrive under our protection." "Protection from what?" the Voron leader asked, his tone curious. "If you've conquered everything worth conquering." Nylor let out a harsh, grating laugh, the sound like metal scraping together. "From whatever lies beyond the frontier," he replied, his voice tinged with an unsettling calm. "Although I'm starting to wonder if anything still exists out there that's worthy of concern." Just then, as if on cue, the ship's alarm systems flared to life, bathing the bridge in ominous crimson light. "Report!" Thralok barked, his earlier relaxed demeanor disappearing instantly, replaced by the centuries of military discipline ingrained into him. Tactical Officer Samantha Turner, a stocky Drukanth with prismatic sensor arrays instead of eyes, worked the holographic controls with fluid precision. "Anomalous energy signature detected at the edge of the Voron system, Commander. Unknown configuration. It doesn't match anything in our database." "Show me," Thralok commanded, leaning forward as the main view screen shifted. The sleek ship hovered against the vast backdrop of stars, its design utterly alien to Zephyri records. Where Zephyri ships were rigid and imposing, this vessel was smooth and aerodynamic. Where Zephyri warships were bristling with weapons, this craft appeared nearly defenseless. Its hull bore strange markings in an unfamiliar script. "Magnify those markings," Thralok ordered, a flicker of curiosity sparking within him for the first time in centuries. The screen zoomed in on the side of the ship, where 7 symbols were displayed. TRRAN1. Terran, Thralok attempted to pronounce awkwardly, his vocal apparatus struggling with the unfamiliar phonetics. "What kind of species is this? And what are they doing in my newly acquired system?" Science Officer Zyrax, already analyzing the incoming data, spoke up. "There's no match in our species index, Commander. They appear to be explorers. Their vessel's energy signature suggests they have considerable technological sophistication, but their weapon systems are minimal. Their construction methods are quite fascinating, though. They're using materials that are unknown to us." Nylor's mandibles clicked in amusement. Maybe they're merchants, hoping to establish trade with the Voron. Poor timing on their part. He turned to Communications Officer Sarah Ford, a sleek humanoid with metallic skin. "Hail them. Follow standard first contact protocols. Let's see what these Terran have to say." Officer Ford's fingers moved across her console with practiced ease. "Channel open, Commander." Thralok straightened, assuming his most imposing stance. "Attention, unidentified vessel. You have entered territory now under the protection of the Zephyri Dominion. Identify yourselves and state your purpose immediately." The view screen flickered, and a face appeared that caused murmurs to ripple through the bridge. The creature was bipedal, with only two eyes, its pinkish-beige skin adorned with strange fibrous growths on top of its head. It looked fragile, almost laughably primitive. "This is Captain Grace Bennett of the Terran exploration vessel Discovery," the creature said, its voice clear and confident, a sharp contrast to its delicate appearance. "We are on a peaceful scientific mission from Earth. We apologize for the intrusion. We were unaware that this system was claimed territory." Nylor stifled a chuckle. "Earth? Never heard of it. And what species are you, Captain?" "Kytharn." He mangled the pronunciation deliberately, a subtle insult meant to be recognized by any civilized species. If Captain Bennett noticed the slight, she gave no indication. "We are humans from Earth, located in the Sol system," she continued. "We have only recently developed interstellar travel capabilities and are eager to establish peaceful relations with other spacefaring civilizations." Strategic advisor Drew Kant leaned toward Thralock, speaking privately in the Zifiri frequency. "They seem completely outmatched, Commander. Their vessel has minimal defensive capabilities. Should we add them to the collection? Their genetics could be useful." Thralock studied the human captain, a strange thought crossing his mind. There was something in her eyes, something he hadn't seen in conquered species for centuries. It wasn't fear. It wasn't submission. It was something else. "Captain Bennett," Thralock said finally, his tone cold. "Your vessel is now the property of the Zifiri Dominion. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance would be futile, but it could be amusing." The human's expression shifted subtly. "I'm afraid we can't comply, Commander. We come in peace, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Perhaps we could meet as equals and discuss." Thralock cut the transmission with a sharp wave of his claw. "Equals?" He laughed loudly. "Did you hear that? The fragile creature thinks it's our equal. Tactical. Target their propulsion systems. Let's give them a proper Zifiri welcome." Before anyone could react, Science Officer Xerax's voice rang out, urgent and alarmed. "Massive spatial distortion detected," he shouted, his scales flashing with an unsettling mix of blue and red. "Something's coming through, it's enormous." The view screen displayed a tear in the fabric of space, a swirling vortex of energy that even the most seasoned Zifari officers flinched at. From within this rift emerged a vessel that dwarfed the Terran exploration ship and rivaled the inevitable conquest in size. "By the first clutch," Thralock whispered, his mandibles hanging slack in stunned surprise. "What is that?" The ship that emerged was unlike anything the Zifiri had ever encountered. Where the exploration vessel had been sleek and scientific, this behemoth was unmistakably military. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, making its true dimensions nearly impossible to gauge. Enormous weapon emplacements jutted from strategic points, and missile silos lined its flanks. The ship bore the same marking as the Terran vessel, but beneath them was another inscription: "Humanity's Vengeance." "Tactical Officer Turner," Thralock demanded, his voice tight with disbelief. "What do our scans say?" Turner's voice was strained, a rare crack in her usual composure. "Preliminary scans show weapon systems of unknown design and potentially devastating yield. Their power core is registering energy outputs that exceed—" Thralock recovered quickly from his initial shock, his anger replacing the surprise. "So they were scouts," he growled. "The exploration vessel was merely testing our defenses. A classic military tactic I should have seen coming." "Commander, the Terran exploration vessel is hailing us," First Officer Riltar reported, her eyes fixed on her console. "Ignore them," Thralock snapped. "Target all weapons on the new arrival. They may have size and surprise, but nothing can withstand the full firepower of a Zifari Dominion flagship." The bridge crew scrambled into action, activating battle stations as Thralock issued commands with practiced precision. "Shields to maximum. Arm quantum torpedoes and graviton lances. Prepare the subspace disruptors." Before the Zifiri could complete their weapons lock, the view screen activated on its own, revealing not the female captain from before, but a grizzled male human. His face was marked by battle scars, and one eye had been replaced with a glowing red cybernetic implant. "This is Admiral Benjamin Hayes of the Terran Defense Force. Dreadnought Humanity's Vengeance," the human growled, his voice carrying a weight of authority that even Thralock couldn't ignore. "You've threatened a peaceful Terran vessel. This action constitutes an act of war against the Terran Alliance." Nyla recovered his composure quickly, his mandibles clicking in what his species would recognize as a contemptuous laugh. "War? You declare war on the Zifari Dominion? We who have conquered 47 civilizations? We who have ruled unchallenged for centuries? Your ignorance is almost amusing, if it weren't so pathetic. Admiral Hayes's expression remained unchanged. Final warning, he said. Power down your weapons and withdraw from this system immediately. Or what? Thraylock taunted. Or will you show us exactly why no one has ever successfully invaded Earth? Hayes's cybernetic eye flashed. We will. Thraylock slammed his armored fist onto his command console. Fire all weapons. Show these presumptuous creatures the might of the Zifari Dominion. The inevitable conquest unleashed its full arsenal. Streams of quantum torpedoes, graviton lances that could tear planets apart, and subspace disruptors that had shattered the will of countless species. The barrage of destructive energy streaked toward the Terran dreadnought, lighting up the void between them. But instead of the expected explosions and hull breaches, something entirely unprecedented occurred. The weaponry seemed to simply disappear, as though absorbed by an invisible barrier surrounding the Terran vessel. What? Thraylock bellowed. Impossible. Nothing can withstand that level of firepower. Nothing. Admiral Hayes's scarred face reappeared on the screen, now wearing what could only be described as a smile, a cold, calculating one. Our turn, he said simply. The bridge of the inevitable conquest erupted into chaos. Warning klaxons blared, and red emergency lights bathed the command center in a bloody glow. The tactical display showed multiple incoming projectiles. Evasive maneuvers, Thraylock roared. All power to forward shields. The massive Zifari flagship lurched as its propulsion system struggled against inertia. Despite its size, the inevitable conquest was remarkably agile, thanks to technologies scavenged from dozens of conquered civilizations. But the Terran weapons weren't behaving like anything they'd encountered before. Commander, those aren't standard projectiles, Science Officer Xerax reported, his voice rising in pitch. They're changing course to intercept us. They're tracking us. Impossible, snarled Strategic Advisor Drukanth. No targeting system can penetrate our multi-phase cloaking field. The first impact rocked the Zifari flagship with stunning force. The bridge crew were thrown from their stations as artificial gravity fluctuated. Damage report, Thraylock demanded, struggling to keep his footing. Officer Riltar ran a rapid diagnostic. Sir, our primary shield generators are completely offline. Thraylock's compound eyes narrowed to slits. That shouldn't be possible with a single hit. How did they know exactly where to strike? Sir, the human exploration vessel is scanning us, Tactical Officer Turner interrupted. They're using some kind of penetrating beam to map our internal systems and transmit data to the dreadnought. Thraylock felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. The cold grip of tactical uncertainty. These humans weren't just reacting. They were operating as a coordinated unit. The exploration vessel was providing intelligence, while the warship executed precise strikes. Destroy that exploration ship now, Thraylock commanded. The Zifari weapons officer targeted the smaller Terran vessel, but just as their weapons locked on, a strange phenomenon occurred. The space around the exploration ship seemed to ripple and distort, and the targeting computers lost their lock. Some kind of localized space-time distortion, Officer Xerax reported, a touch of reluctant admiration in his voice. They're manipulating the fabric of reality to deflect our targeting systems. Before the Zifari could recalibrate, the dreadnought Humanity's Vengeance fired again. This time, instead of conventional weapons, a brilliant blue beam shot out, connecting with the flagship's hull. There was no explosion, no physical damage, but something inside the ship began shutting down. What's happening? Thraylock demanded, watching in horror as console after console went dark. It's some kind of electromagnetic pulse, Xerax responded, frantically working his still-functioning science station. But far more sophisticated. It's not just disabling our electronics, it's rewriting our command protocols. They're hacking our systems while simultaneously attacking us. As if to confirm Xerax's assessment, the main view screen flickered again, showing Admiral Hayes. Behind him, humans worked at stations that appeared primitive compared to Zifari technology. They used physical buttons and switches instead of thought interfaces and holographic controls, yet somehow their archaic approach was proving devastatingly effective. Interesting design flaw in your central computer core, Hayes remarked conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Putting all your encryption nodes in a centralized location makes them vulnerable to cascade failure. A basic security mistake. We outgrew that kind of architecture centuries ago. Nylor hissed in fury. How dare you lecture me on ship design? We've absorbed the technological achievements of dozens of advanced civilizations. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. That's your problem right there. You've stolen technology you don't fully understand. You're using tools without comprehending the principles behind them. A second impact, more violent than the first, ripped through the flagship. The first tremor rippled through the inevitable conquest, its effects vibrating through the flagship. Alarms shrieked as fractures appeared in the supposedly unbreakable hull. "Sir, they've deployed some kind of molecular disassemblers," Science Officer Xerax reported, his scales now a pale hue of alarm. "They're not just destroying our hull, they're unmaking it at an atomic level." Thraylock could scarcely believe what he was hearing. The Zifiri had always prided themselves on their technological superiority, always the ones to instill fear in their enemies. To face such a reversal was beyond comprehension. "Launch the fighter squadrons," Thraylock barked. "Surround them and overwhelm them with numbers." 100 Zifari strike craft burst from the flagship's bay, charging toward the Terran dreadnought like a swarm of angry insects. For a moment it seemed as if victory was imminent. Surely no single vessel could fend off so many attack vectors at once. But then the impossible unfolded once more. The Terran dreadnought began to change, sections of its hull reconfiguring in real time. Panels slid aside, revealing previously hidden weapon systems. What had seemed to be one colossal ship now revealed itself to be a carrier platform for dozens of smaller craft, which broke free and surged toward the Zifiri fighters. "Modular design," First Officer Riltar murmured in realization. "Their ship isn't a single unit. It's a composite of interlocking vessels, each able to function independently." The space between the two ships erupted into a chaotic melee as Zifiri fighters clashed with Terran interceptors. Where the Zifiri craft were mass-produced, identical in every way, each Terran vessel seemed distinct, employing different weapons, tactics, and designs. Some fired conventional weaponry, while others released swarms of microscopic drones that latched onto Zifiri fighters, disabling them from within. Some vessels generated electromagnetic pulses that interfered with Zifiri targeting systems. They're not operating as a unified force, Thraylock realized, his mind racing. Every pilot is making independent tactical decisions. There's no central command structure to target or disrupt. This was warfare like nothing the Zifiri had ever known. Chaotic, adaptive, innovative, and it was working. "Commander, we've lost 30% of our fighter squadrons," Tactical Officer Turner reported, her voice unsteady. "The humans are targeting our squadron leaders. They're somehow identifying them and eliminating them first." Thraylock gripped the edges of his command console, the tension in his exoskeleton palpable. For the first time in his entire military career, he faced an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move. "Redirect auxiliary power to the remaining shield generators," Thraylock ordered, his voice sharp. "Prepare the Omega Protocol." A tense silence descended on the bridge. The Omega Protocol, the Zifiri's ultimate weapon, had never been field-tested in battle. Developed from the assimilated technologies of 3 highly advanced civilizations, it could create a localized rupture in space-time, capable of devouring an entire fleet. "Commander," First Officer Riltar warned, her tone filled with caution. "The Omega Protocol has never been tested in combat. The energy drain will leave us completely vulnerable for 78 seconds during the charging phase." "Do you have a better suggestion?" Thraylock retorted sharply. "These humans are unlike any we've faced before. We must end this now, or more Zifiri warriors will fall." As the deadly weapon powered up, the view screen flickered to life once again. This time, not only Admiral Hayes, but also Captain Bennett appeared, standing side by side on the Dreadnought's bridge. "We're detecting an immense energy buildup," Captain Bennett said, her voice calm and steady. "Your primary weapon, based on our analysis, you're preparing to deploy some form of space-time weapon. I strongly advise against pursuing this path." Nyler let out a bitter, rasping laugh. "You advise me when your ship is moments away from annihilation? The Omega Protocol will erase your vessel from existence itself." Admiral Hayes' expression remained unchanged. "Commander Thraylock, we've been monitoring your power fluctuations. Your weapon draws energy directly from your propulsion and life support systems. Fire it, and your ship becomes a stationary target with no means to sustain your crew." Thraylock felt a sudden cold shiver run through his exoskeleton. How could they possibly know the Omega Protocol's classified details? How could they know his full name when he had never revealed it? Hayes' expression softened just slightly. "We don't want to destroy your ship, Commander. That's not our aim. We came prepared for this encounter with one purpose: to demonstrate that humanity cannot be underestimated and to establish mutual respect. Suddenly, the tactical display lit up with a flurry of new alerts. Sensors detected additional spatial distortions blossoming across the battlefield. From these ripples in space, 5 more Terran vessels emerged, each distinct in design from the original dreadnought, but each unmistakably formidable. "The Terran Defense Fleet," Captain Bennett explained, her voice steady. "This is just a small part of it. We could have deployed them immediately, but we wanted to give you a chance to reconsider your position without overwhelming you." In that moment, as Thralock took in the sight of the Terran fleet and the damage already dealt to his forces, the unthinkable occurred. Nylor Thralock, Supreme Commander of the Zifari Dominion, conqueror of 47 civilizations, made a decision he never believed he would make. "Cancel the Omega Protocol," he ordered quietly. "Stand down all weapons." The diplomatic chamber aboard the inevitable Conquest had never witnessed genuine negotiations before. Usually it served as the stage for conquered species to formally surrender, receiving their terms of subjugation. But today, it hosted an entirely different kind of meeting. Commander Thralock stood across from Captain Bennett and Admiral Hayes, flanked by his senior officers. The contrast between the two species was stark. The Zifari with their towering exoskeletons and multiple limbs, the humans, by comparison, fragile and soft. Yet Thralock now realized the true danger in underestimating them. "You could have destroyed us," Nylor said flatly, his secondary voice box humming with a deep, reflective sound. "Why didn't you?" Admiral Hayes and Captain Bennett exchanged a brief glance before responding. "Destruction isn't our goal, Commander," Hayes said, his voice calm. "Humanity has fought enough wars within our own ranks to know that true victory is not found in annihilation." Thralock clicked his mandibles in confusion. "Wars within your own ranks? Your species fights against itself?" "Yes," Captain Bennett replied calmly. "For most of our history, yes. Only in the past few centuries have we learned the true cost of such conflict." "Did we unite as a species and turn our focus outward?" Captain Bennett's words echoed in the silence. "Our internal conflicts shaped us, forced us to innovate, adapt, and overcome challenges from those who understood us better than we understood ourselves." Strategic advisor Drukanth leaned forward, his scarred carapace catching the light as he processed the information. "This explains much," he muttered, his voice low. "You fight unlike any unified species we've encountered. Your tactics are unpredictable, fragmented." "We call it thinking outside the box," Admiral Hayes replied with a slight grin. "Humans value initiative and independence alongside collaboration. Each of our ship captains is trained to make decisions on their own while pursuing common goals." Thralock felt his thoughts begin to shift uneasily. For millennia, the Zifari had adhered to rigid principles of hierarchy and uniformity. The idea of encouraging independent tactical thinking seemed chaotic, reckless even. Yet the results were undeniable. "And your technology?" Science Officer Xerax interjected, his tone revealing the scientific fascination he could no longer contain. "How did you develop such advanced systems without relying on conquered species? Modular ships, space-time manipulation, molecular disassemblers?" Captain Bennett smiled knowingly. "We invented them. Necessity and curiosity are powerful motivators. When you can't steal technology, you create it." A heavy silence fell over the Zifari delegation, as this simple statement shattered centuries of imperial doctrine. The Zifari had become so accustomed to assimilating technologies from subjugated species that they had neglected true innovation. "Perhaps," Thralock began slowly, testing each word as he spoke, "the Zifari Dominion has followed a path that leads to stagnation rather than strength. We thought we were the pinnacle of evolution, yet here you stand, having achieved capabilities that rival or surpass our own through creativity and collaboration." First Officer Riltar, a stalwart defender of Zifari supremacy, nodded reluctantly. "That would explain why our conquests have grown progressively easier. We've been fighting opponents who think like we do, while growing complacent in our methods." Thralock regarded the humans with a newfound respect. "You are a different kind of challenge, one our traditional methods cannot meet." Admiral Hayes leaned forward, his voice steady. "Which brings us to why we're here, Commander. Humanity is ready to form diplomatic relations with the Zifari Dominion, as equals, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as partners in exploring this galaxy." "Partners?" Thralock echoed, the word foreign on his tongue. "The Zifari have never had partners. There's a first time for everything, Captain Bennett answered with a warm smile. That's another human trait. We believe in second chances and new beginnings. 3 cycles later, the Zifiri High Council chamber on Xenos Prime hummed with a level of activity not seen in centuries. Representatives from 47 formerly subjugated species now sat alongside Zifari counselors, not as conquered subjects but as delegates to the newly formed Galactic Cooperative. Commander Thraylock, now appointed diplomatic overseer, stood before the assembly, his exoskeleton polished to ceremonial perfection. Beside him stood Captain Bennett, Admiral Hayes, and a delegation of human diplomats and scientists. The formation of this cooperative marks the dawn of a new era, Thraylock announced, his voice resounding throughout the vast chamber. For too long, the Zifiri Dominion expanded through conquest instead of cooperation. We believed this was the path to strength, but our encounter with humanity has proven otherwise. Murmurs spread throughout the room, some voices raised in approval, others laced with skepticism. Change was never easy, especially for species as long-lived and tradition-bound as the Zifari. Some among you fear that this shift in policy signifies weakness, Thraylock continued, his secondary voice box making a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. I once shared that fear, but consider this. In just 3 short cycles since we aligned with Earth, Zifiri scientific advancement has surged more rapidly than in the last 300 cycles combined. Holographic displays flickered to life around the chamber, showing technological breakthroughs that merge Zifari biological adaptability with human ingenuity. New medical techniques benefiting dozens of species, repulsion systems that reduced interstellar travel time by 60%, communication networks spanning sectors once considered unreachable. The humans call this synergy, Thraylock explained, the idea that diverse minds working in cooperation can achieve more than any single species could alone. We Zifiri always believed strength came from absorption and assimilation. The humans showed us the power of collaboration and mutual respect. Stepping forward, Captain Bennett addressed the assembly. The Terran Alliance doesn't seek to replace one galactic hegemon with another. Earth has no desire to build an empire. What we offer instead is a federation of equals, where each species contributes its unique strengths and perspectives. Admiral Hayes nodded, adding, Humanity spent millennia fighting amongst ourselves before we learned this lesson. Different doesn't mean inferior. Competition doesn't require conquest. Diversity is not weakness. It is resilience. A Voran representative rose, his voice booming across the chamber. And what of defense? The Zifiri Dominion's military might have protected, perhaps oppressed, this sector for generations. What happens when we face hostile forces from beyond our borders? Hayes' cybernetic eye flashed in response. The Cooperative Defense Force will combine the best tactical minds from all member species. Terran ingenuity, Zifiri adaptability, Fernok precision, and Tect scientific brilliance. Together, we will be stronger than any one species could ever be on its own. Thraylock surveyed the chamber, noting the mix of hope and uncertainty on the faces of the delegates, both familiar and alien. Change is never easy, he admitted. For centuries, the Zifiri knew only one path to security, ensuring we were the most feared species in the galaxy. In the galaxy, we now embark on a new path, Thraylock reflected, his voice carrying a tone of quiet contemplation as the assembly broke into smaller groups. He turned to Captain Bennett, his gaze fixed with admiration. Your species has reshaped our civilization in just a few cycles. I still find it difficult to comprehend how a seemingly fragile species from an unremarkable planet could achieve what 47 advanced civilizations could not. Bennett's smile softened, tinged with both pride and humility. Perhaps that's exactly why, Commander. Humans evolved on a world that constantly sought to eliminate us. We fought predators faster and stronger than us, survived ice ages, asteroids, plagues, and came close to destroying ourselves with our own weapons. Every challenge forced us to adapt, to think creatively, and most importantly, to cooperate. These lessons have shaped us into what we are now. Thraylock considered her words for a long moment. As have the humans, Bennett responded. We've gained access to medical technologies that will extend our lifespans, propulsion systems that will help us explore new horizons, and most importantly, allies who understand that true strength is not defined by how many you conquer, but by how many are willing to stand beside you when the real challenges arise. At that moment, the alert system activated, the chamber lighting up with an urgent warning. A spatial anomaly appeared at the edge of charted space, larger than any previously recorded. Nylor and Bennett exchanged a knowing glance, their expressions reflecting both concern and anticipation. Whatever emerged from that anomaly would face not a fractured galaxy of conquerors and the conquered, but a united cooperative of species, each bringing their unique strengths to the collective effort. For the first time in his long existence, Commander Threlok felt something unfamiliar. Genuine confidence, not in his own superiority, but in the power of unexpected alliances. On the observation deck of the newly commissioned cooperative flagship, Unity Through Diversity, an aging Threlok stood alongside Elena Bennett, now ambassador to the Galactic Cooperative. Together they gazed out at the massive spatial anomaly that had appeared 3 standard months ago, still fluctuating with an unpredictable rhythm. The ancient archives speak of something similar, Threlok mused, his once vibrant exoskeleton now weathered with age. The progenitors, the species believed to have seeded our galaxy with life, were said to communicate through such anomalies. Bennett nodded, her expression thoughtful. Our scientists believe it's a dimensional gateway. Whatever comes through will be unlike anything we've encountered before. And you're not afraid? Threlok asked, studying his human companion's calm face, searching for any hint of doubt. Bennett smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Of course I'm afraid. Fear is part of being human. But I'm also curious and hopeful. We don't shy away from the unknown. We face it with a mix of trepidation and anticipation. That's what makes us who we are. Nylor's mandibles clicked, mirroring what might have been a human smile. Before we met your species, the Zifri would have seen such an anomaly as nothing more than a potential threat, something to conquer or destroy. And now? Bennett prompted gently. Now we see it as you do, Threlok said, a newfound clarity in his voice. A mystery to unravel, a challenge to rise to, perhaps even a hand extended in friendship. Bennett gestured toward the fleet below, vessels of countless designs, each representing a different species of the cooperative. They stood together as one, united by their diversity. As the anomaly began to pulse with increasing intensity, Threlok felt an unfamiliar sensation ripple through him. Not the bloodlust of conquest, but the thrilling uncertainty of discovery. Whatever emerged from that swirling rift would find not the Zifuri dominion of old, but something far more powerful. A galaxy united in its differences, strengthened by its diversity, and led by the most improbable alliance of all, the conqueror who had learned to cooperate, and the fragile species that proved to be anything but weak.